Hi everyone, welcome to the Scomathon. It's very nice that Ruud and I can join. As Richard already said, my name is Serge.
Ruud.
Yes, I'm here together with Ruud. Sorry, I'm always a bit enthusiastic, so I keep on chatting while others do the same. So Ruud, slow me down if I go too fast.
Okay.
Hi to everyone, very nice to have you. Ruud and I are going to share some tips and tricks for authoring management packs. We're both premier field engineers at Microsoft, like Richard already said, working on SCOM and Azure Monitor. And we do a lot of management pack authoring, so we thought we'd share some tips. Here are the topics that we're going to talk about.
So what we do is we start with a brief introduction about SCOM management packs. We're going to talk about the Visual Studio authoring extensions because mostly everything in this session is about Visual Studio authoring extensions. We're going to use that. And then, of course, we're going to go down to the actual topic, which is creating your own template for a SCOM management pack. And in that, we're going to dive a little bit deeper about how you create the template, but also stuff around best practices for naming conventions and folder structures.
So, since we're thanks Ruud for sharing that, and since we're both very enthusiastic about authoring management packs, we would very much like to know if you out there also currently author your own MPs. So, time for a quick poll.
So please enter your.
It should be on your screen right now.
Yep. So let's continue and we'll see the results later, I guess.
Sounds great to me. So it's all about management packs that we're going to talk about, how to author them. And as you probably already know, a management pack for SCOM consists of monitors, rules, tasks, reports, as Akash just showed you as part of the roadmap. Specific management packs are created for specific technologies or products. So what if you want to monitor your product for which a management pack doesn't exist? You can author your own management pack. So how would you go about monitoring your own management pack? For now, we're going to use Visual Studio with the Visual Studio authoring extensions. Ruud, not sure if you want to add some.
Yeah, of course. So there are multiple tools, of course, for authoring your management packs. Think about the Visual Studio authoring extensions in combination with Visual Studio, but also things like Notepad, Notepad++. But don't forget about Select MP Author. So there's multiple ways of doing it. And we here touch the Visual Studio authoring extensions just for a number of reasons. There you've got the possibility for IntelliSense, so it's sort of you can auto-complete. You can also use the templates in here. There's multiple ways of navigation features. You've got the Microsoft, the management pack best practice analyzer. Always saying that one wrong. So there's multiple reasons why to use Visual Studio. As well, it allows you, for example, to, if you want to go into a more professional level, to save it in, for example, in your repositories, things like GitHub or Azure DevOps. So these were the things that could be a real reason why you use Visual Studio, in this case for management pack authoring.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks. So the Visual Studio authoring extensions are available for download. We have a separate slide with all the download links. And if I remember correctly, the slide deck will be shared. So Visual Studio authoring extensions work with all editions of Visual Studio and all current supported versions of Visual Studio. So this should get you going, creating your own management pack. Just before we dive in, we were wondering, do you have a preferred authoring tool for those that currently manage your own, author your own management packs? So quick poll. And while you answer the poll, you could wonder yourself, why would we create a management pack template when we're going to alter our management packs. Ruud, why do you use a template?
It's very simple. It's not always that you are creating huge and large management packs for a large application. Sometimes there's just something small. And Serge, both you and me are also giving workshops, for example, for automation. We're giving PowerShell workflow, so we like automation. Not necessarily here that this is about automation, but we like to do things efficient. And one of the things I always hated is the fact that if you got a small management pack, and sometimes you just have an application which only having 1 or 2 service monitors, maybe just a simple rule, but you're always doing the same task over and over again. You start creating a management pack, you're creating your folder structure, you are doing basically the same work which you always do as well for a large management pack, only in this case it's for something really small. So hey, why not just save some time here, create a template, and then you can skip most of the bogus stuff and just start almost immediately working on what you actually want, is your management pack altering. So I don't know if you've have anything to add on this one?
Yeah, definitely, because I recognize what you're saying. And with me, with all those small management packs for which I create the same structure, I always end up having different management packs where sometimes I use service model and then I use source model. So small inconsistencies get introduced. So having a template at hand will certainly help prevent such things as well. So thanks for elaborating on that. If you want to create your own template, you can start from scratch using nothing else than Notepad or Notepad++. That's the real die-hard version. I guess we have some die-hard authoring experts on this Comathon. Very enthusiastic to hear your experiences later on in Meet the Speaker Cafe. For now, we're going to focus on these prerequisites. We're going to use Visual Studio with the authoring extensions. Something that we mention as prerequisites as well is a solid name for our template. Make it product version proof. For me, as an example, I try to avoid the SCOM version that I'm going to deploy my management pack to, or for which I'm going to create my management template. For a solid name, I try to think about IDs that are easily replaceable using find and replace, which will Ruud show later on. But also try to avoid environments abbreviations like PRD, quality assurance test, or for example, include those if you're going to deploy your template to a specific environment or a specific version. Ruud, not sure if you have some tips or tricks that I forgot about.
I think you covered it all pretty good.
Thanks. I try to. So thanks for that. So when we're going to work with our management pack template, it's very easy to start. So we're going to just open Visual Studio, create a new project, and as you create a new project, you can select for which SCOM version you are going to create it. So it can be SCOM 2012, 2016, 2019. And then when you have created your project, you will have a solution along with your project from which you can start. And this is how we start by creating our own management pack template that we're going to use for authoring. So I did all the easy stuff. Now for the hard stuff, we're going to actually start Visual Studio, where we're going to talk about naming conventions for our classes, discoveries, monitors, how you can work with a folder structure for your service in your health model, include folders in your presentation model. So I'm going to stop share this screen so we can move over to Visual Studio.
I'm going to share my screen. So Serge already mentioned a little bit is like about folder structure. So Oh, I see some poll results with some pretty good results for Visual Studio Authoring Extension. Good about that. But nonetheless, MP Author is also a great tool, so don't forget about that one. So Serge already mentioned saying, hey, you start by creating a management pack template just like you create any regular management pack. So for the sake of staying within the time limit, I've created the template ready for you. But what I will do is I'll just go run through it like we're creating everything new. So same thing like Serge mentioned, just go to a new project, create a new template, a new management pack just from one of the templates. So for this demo, I've used specifically the one for SCOM 2019. And what I did at first is I started by setting the properties, just like you do with any regular management pack. In this case, what you need to do is you need to decide on certain generic names. So because this one is really specifically for SCOM 2019, I've called this one SCOM 2019 template MP. That's the management pack ID, management pack name. And I've used the same name for the default namespace. Then I've chosen a management pack friendly name, which we also use for the display name. Those two are definitely not the same, but I will use the same thing here. So in this case, I've called this SCOM 2019 template management pack. Other than that, we'll set everything like we regularly do in a normal management pack. So I go to build. I, for example, say in this case, I want to seal it. I'm giving it a company name. In this case, we've called it Ruud and Serge. Also change the company name here to have it like a copyright Ruud and Serge. And I've included the link to the to my key file to seal it. Last thing I did is I unticked the auto increment version. I don't like this one, but it's more or less because if you use this when you are working with multiple people on a management pack, it sometimes can have really weird behavior if you are syncing this with, for example, a repository. So I always untick this one and decide on which moment I decide to raise the version of my management pack to a higher number. So these are the standard things we've set. So this is the start. Keep in mind, the management pack ID is called SCOM 2019.template.mp. So the first thing which you do in this case is create a language pack. So you can see here we've got the folder structure and we've created a number of folders. And you can see here, I'm just going to click them in so you don't get distracted. We have here help model, language pack, presentation, resources, and service model. This is something you can decide on pretty much what you want. There is not really a best practice for this, but what I always use is I use the management pack browser sort of as a guide. So if you go to view a management pack browser and you select one of the management packs, and the library is a good example here, you can see that there's a similar structure. So you can see here service model, health model, presentation, type library, reporting, language packs, and resources. So instead of just figuring out something yourself, just use what's already ready available. And especially like Serge already mentioned, he sometimes using the name source model and then he has service model. This way, if you forgot what you were doing, just look in the management pack browser and sort of steal that ID because it's a really good ID. So I've created the folders because I'm always creating this folder. It could be that I'm not using all of these folders and all of those things in my management pack, but nonetheless, I'm usually creating all those folders anyway, because at the beginning of the management pack, I'm not sure if I'm going to use them at all times. So in this case, I'm starting with the language pack, and this one is for ENU. And here you can see SCOM 2019.template.mp, and I've called this very, again, generic SCOM 2019 template management pack. And here's the first time you'll see that I'm sort of using names that I'm going to use later to search and replace if I'm going to use a template. So here you can see already I'm using for application display name. This is going to make it easier for me to do a find and replace this with the information I want. Now, in this case, I'm going to service model, and service model, of course, can contain classes, groups. So here what I've done is I've included two classes. One is a normal local application class, which here you can see is you see SCOM 2019.template.mp.class, and here you see the generic name of the class. Again, I've not used nothing because we're not designing this for a specific application. We're designing this as a template. So here we see already one of the things that is having sort of around the naming convention. And maybe Serge, you can sort of elaborate a little bit why we are using this method with the class there. You have some really good reasons for that.
Yeah, well, one of the main reasons for me to choose this way of creating your IDs is later on when you're going to work a lot in your language pack to include all the monitors and the discoveries and the groups, everything you created, you want to give them a display name and optionally a description. So by using this type of ID, I have all my classes grouped by scom2019.templatemp.class. So now whenever I want to use IntelliSense, for example, during the language pack phase where I'm going to give everything a display name, I can simply press Ctrl space. It'll show me SCOM 2019, and then I can select template MP, and then I can select class, and it'll show me all my classes. Or I can choose SCOM 2019.template.discoveries, and it'll show all my discoveries. So this is for me a nifty way of grouping all objects, so to speak, of a certain type, classes, discovery, groups.
Again, here there is not one method to use, and it's more or less what you agree on yourself. If you're the only one that's designing a management pack, but if you're working in a team, it's really good to have to make agreements on this before you start designing management packs with everyone in your team, because otherwise you're gonna have one big mess with everything going around and nobody understands what it's doing. So naming conventions is quite important in your management pack.
Yeah. Besides this, another nifty thing of using a template for your management pack is, as you can see, Ruud also created a group for all alerts. And as you might have noticed, it's an instance group. So if we want to use the instance group, we have to incorporate additional references. So if you include those in your template as well, you will have those available to you when you use your own template.
Yeah, good one, because I forgot about that one. Is indeed, when I started with this management pack, I added 3 references. And in this case, I've added the reference for the instance group library, the data warehouse library, and for the performance libraries. By default, these are not yet added as a reference because you potentially not need them by default. But I've added this one, the instance group library, specifically for the group part. I've added the data warehouse library for things I do regarding performance counters, performance collection. And I'm using the, and sending it to data warehouse. That's something I have to add. And the performance library is specifically indeed for the performance counters.
Yeah.
The all alerts group I've used indeed is to combine all of the classes I have into one group. So all instances are being added to the group and make it really easy to create alert views. But we'll come back to that a little bit later. So here again, so you want to add something, Sergio?
Yeah, I guess we only have 5 minutes left. I'm keeping a little bit track of time.
Only 5 minutes? Ooh.
Yeah, yeah. We have a lot of to chat about, so maybe we can fast forward a little bit to the find and replace, because this is, I guess, a big thing for the hard part.
So let me do a quick run of what I've included. So here you can see the temp class ID. It is a generic name. What you see as well is you see at certain points, you see in this case template class display name. You see as well application display name as well here. These are all very generic names. So if you go through this management pack, and I will make this available after the session so you can actually use it to your own advantage. You can see it up close. You see it coming back everywhere. So here you can see, for example, the SCOM 2019 template class, the temp class ID. You see it everywhere coming back. But you see here as well, you see things, you see it everywhere coming back. So I'm gonna run a little bit quicker through through everything. One thing, of course, is quite important. If you've got classes, you need the discovery as well. So we've introduced here the discovery, which includes the temp class ID as well. In this case, it's targeted against Windows Server Computer. You see here is that it's a simple registry discovery that will discover a registry key for Ruud and Serge's marvelous application. Again, these are things that need to be changed specifically to your application. So there are always variables you need to change. Again, here you see again the template class display name coming back. I think you understand the drill from here. So once you're done and you've created everything into what you actually want, the only thing what you need to do is you save everything, of course, and then you go to project, and then you choose export template. So we're just going to follow it like we were doing that. We're going to project template. I press next, and here I am giving it a name. In this case, I'm just going to leave it as SCOM 2019 Template Management Pack, and I'll put a description here. This is a template for SCOM 2019 MP. Oh, make a typo. You can even add an icon image if you want. In this case, I'll just press finish. Oh, there's still some files apparently left. And I'm going to save them. So what happens here is that you can see is if you ticked all the buttons, you can see, hey, this is the location where my template is stored. So the next step, of course, is using it. So I think for the sake of time, because I think there was a slide in between, was it Serge? Are we skipping that one as well?
Well, it's all about the easy part that you're going to go to now. So please go ahead and show them how you can actually work with the management pack template that we just created.
Okay, one of the important things is if you're going to file and you still have Visual Studio still open, and you go to file new project, it won't show up as a project, as a template. So what I always recommend, in this case, I do it by right click on Visual Studio because it's open anyway. I'm going to open a new Visual Studio. Only then you need to reopen Visual Studio to make it available with the selection from the new management pack. So here I'm going to choose, okay, I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to wait until that one loads. And hey, that's funny, it's gone. Oh, most likely because it's there, but let me search for him here. Usually it actually shows on top. If I here just do search for SCOM, and that is one of the annoying things sometimes from these templates. If you press enter, it will show up here. But here you can see SCOM 2019 template MP, and in this case, this is a template for SCOM 2019 MP. This is still left over from one of my dry runs, so forget about that one. In this case, I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to press next. Now we're going to give this a name, and we've just come up with a name which is going to be Front End Explorer is our application going to be named. So we're going to call this Front End Explorer. Hey, most likely there's something already. And in this case, we're going to go with Front End Server. Still had some leftovers from the dry run. So it's creating the management pack now. Give it a moment to create.
This always takes time.
Don't know why it should take so long, but.
Well, in my case, the system adheres to the user, and since I'm kind of slow, I guess the system is as well.
Hey, this is weird. I think it closed my Visual Studio. Because oh, there it is. Okay, it took some time. So what you see here now is we've got a management pack, and one of the things, the important thing is now what you need to do is I've got a file which is called file to replace. Even if we're going to use that, it won't change the management pack IDs you've got here. This one you always need to set manually. So in this case, I'm gonna call this frontend.server. I'm going to copy and paste this because I'm a little bit lazy. We're going to replace the default namespace as well. In this case, we call this front end server, and we're going to save this one. Don't forget about this. Save it. It's quite important to do that because you will have some weird things going on. I'm going to close this one. And what I did is I've created an MPX file, which in this case explains what you need to find and replace. So here you can see SCOM 2019 template MP. So one thing I need to do here is, this is going to change the management pack ID everywhere it's needed. I use in this case Control H. You're going to use as well, of course, is go to edit, find and replace, and then it's going to be the quick replace. One thing that's important is by default, this option is as selected as current document. Change this to current project, because it will replace everything in your current project. So in this case, we're going to call this frontend dot server, and I'm going to say replace all. If you got this question here, just press yes. It will replace it in all files in your project. And you can see here we've got 57 places where it has been replaced. You can see here as well, in this case, it's been replaced here as well. So here what we're going to do is we need to set a management pack display name. In this case, I'm going to call this frontend server management pack. Probably make a typo there. I'm going to leave that for now. It doesn't really is a big issue. Of course, I recommend changing that in anything what you're doing if it's going to be an actual management pack. Here you can see it's been replaced on two things. And here what we got is we got the display name of the application. So if I'm going to do a replace in that one, in this case, our application was called frontend server. And I'm going to replace that one as well. It's a display name, so this one can include spaces. Now, then we've got the display name of the class. In this case, our application is going to be called front-end server, and I'm called this is going to be a web server. And I can replace this as well. When you do this, make sure you don't choose to match two generic names. So don't choose things like server, backup, network, because there's already, even from Microsoft, there's too many management packs that are using two generic names. I always recommend include something that is applicable to your application to make sure to distinguish it. Even if you've got multiple versions, I recommend doing things like front-end server 2012 web server. So you have a different version in there. It makes it a whole lot easier to find things in SCOM if you need it. And then there's the temp class ID. That's the last one we're going to change. So this temp class ID, it's only the last part, in this case, in the class name. So I'm going to call this, in this case, front-end server. So I'm going to call it FS. And in this case, because it's a web server, I'm going to call it FS Web. I'm going to replace it. So what you see now is that everywhere through your management pack, if I go, for example, to service model, I see that everything is now front-end server, class, FS Web. Here, there was nothing to replace, so nothing to replace there. And here you can see front-end server, web server. This class contains all instances of type front-end server, web server. So this is something you can easily do. So you can see now that within a number of minutes, you have already these being replaced. And as well with discoveries, you see the same thing. Here, front-end server discovery, and you see everywhere everything is changed. Ensure to, when you're done, to save everything. Because how are we time-wise? We still got
30 seconds to go.
Oh, then I'm going to do it quick. So one thing I want to show you, because I hope it's going to give the error I'm actually hoping for. If I'm pressing build now, you sometimes, and I've only seen it with Visual Studio 2019, is it will give an error. It gives a large error. And I'm hoping it will do now. Yes, it will do it. So it will give an error. And it almost looks like a timing issue. Don't be afraid if you see this, because there's a number of ways what you can do. One of the things I've saw is that you can just press rebuild solution. That will actually work. But I would recommend don't do anything by making change or anything. I've seen it quite often is that, for example, the properties for whatever reason are still not being populated properly enough. I otherwise recommend, and I'm just going to do it for now, I'm going to, just for the sake of the time, going to save it, open it again, and then build it again. It looks to be, that it could be a Visual Studio 2019 thing, but if I'm now most likely pressing build or rebuild, it will just build without any problem. Hopefully you do for this sake of presentation, fingers crossed. Please do so. Shoot, still not. Even in the test runs, we had it as well. And sometimes just a couple of minutes later, not even a couple of minutes, 30 seconds later, it will actually build. But you always see that with these kind of things, it will never run the moment you want it.
But that's always the case when you're doing something live.
Yep, that's the live thing. Like we did in the test run, we did the same thing. We had the same thing, and then it was less than 30 seconds later when I did a rebuild. It just built without any issue. So we didn't change anything. I was hoping that would happen actually in this demo, but I was not hoping it to be this persistent, because I know for sure there's nothing wrong with it. Or I have made a typo somewhere. That could be as well. Let me quickly check front-end server. No, that one is fine. That one is fine. Classes. So what you see here, it's still using this scom2019.template.mp. So the last thing what I did was, if I'm going to search for scom2019.template.mp, and I did a search for it. Hey, I did a boo-boo. Where is this being found? Most likely I did a boo-boo. So I was quite persistent saying, hey, I did everything right, but most likely I didn't. So let me quickly do. Where is it? For whatever reason, it's in here. Hey, for whatever reason, it didn't change it here in this section at all in the current project. That's weird. That's been replaced. And there are most likely some other things that haven't been replaced. Yeah, because the temp class ID is also not being replaced. It's kind of weird. But hey, I think I called this one FS Web. I recall it correctly. Let me quickly see if it builds now. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it here for now, just for the sake of the time. Please do so now. It looks like that for whatever reason the research and replace didn't. Oh, here's fine. Didn't work really properly.
I'm surprised as well, because I have seen it work. So
yeah,
it's. I think this one is great to take to the Meet the Speaker Cafe. I can see Vikram being lined up already. So Ruud, thank you very much for sharing this. And
for this terrible presentation regarding the non-successful template. No, I'm kidding.
No, it's not. I think it's very successful. I think you gave great insight on how you can use this. I especially like the part where you leave this open so we can have a nice conversation at the Meet the Speaker Cafe. So I think you did a brilliant job. Thanks everyone for listening, for tuning in. I hope, Ruud and I hope that you really enjoyed this session, and that you can take some tips and tricks from this one.